Hi, I'm Michael Wallace from Walt Disney Parks and Resorts Safety Services. As you may know, OSHA recently adopted the United Nations Globally Harmonized System of Classification and Labeling of Chemicals, GHS, as part of a revised Hazard Communication Standard. Please listen carefully to the changes because whether or not you use chemical products or hazardous substances, it's likely you may encounter them at some point while working at Walt Disney Parks and Resorts. The significant changes include the use of new labeling elements on the packaging of chemicals or hazardous substances, a standardized format for safety data sheets, or SDSs. We have traditionally called these MSDSs, or Material Safety Data Sheets. First, let's talk about the new labels. The new labels require that hazards be communicated through pictures for immediate recognition. These pictograms will allow you to quickly identify the hazards. For multiple hazards, the labels provide information about personal protection. The standard requires that the labels must be printed in legible English and prominently displayed on the container. On the new labels, you can expect to see product identifier. This can be the chemical or product name, code or batch number, and is the chief means of identifying the substance. The same product identifier must be on the label and on the chemical's safety data sheet. Signal word. There are only two signal words, danger and warning. The usage quickly indicates the severity of the hazard. Danger is used for the more severe hazards, and warning is used for the less severe hazards. Should a material or substance possess multiple hazards, the signal word will default to the higher hazard level. Pictogram. There are 9 pictograms that represent 9 specific hazard categories. Pictograms will appear in the shape of a square with a black hazard symbol on a white background with a red frame. Keep in mind there could be more than one pictogram on the label if the chemical possesses more than one hazard. The health hazard symbol indicates that a chemical may pose a hazard to your health, such as a carcinogen, mutagenicity, reproductive toxicity, respiratory sensitizer, target organ toxicity, or aspiration toxicity. The flame symbol indicates a chemical that is flammable, a pyrophoric, self-heating, emits flammable gas, is self-reactive, or is an organic peroxide. The exclamation mark indicates a chemical that is an eye or skin irritant, a skin sensitizer, could cause harmful acute toxicity, narcotic effects, irritate your respiratory tract, or is hazardous to the Earth's ozone layer. The gas cylinder symbol indicates a chemical that is under pressure. The corrosion symbol indicates a chemical that could cause skin corrosion, including burns, eye damage, or is corrosive to metals. The exploding bomb symbol indicates a chemical that is an explosive, self-reactive, or an organic peroxide. The flame over circle symbol indicates an oxidizer chemical. The environment symbol indicates a chemical that is harmful to the environment. The skull and crossbones symbol indicates a chemical that could cause acute toxicity, including the risk of fatality. Please memorize these symbols. They are found on the handout that you have in front of you and will appear on the new chemical labels and SDSs. Hazard statements. The hazard statements describe the nature of the hazards of a chemical, including the degree of hazard, if appropriate. Hazard statements may be combined when a chemical or product presents multiple hazards. Please note that the hazard statements are specific and the same statement will always appear for the same hazards, no matter what the chemical is or who produces it. Precautionary statements. Precautionary statements are phrases that describe the recommended measures that should be taken to minimize or prevent adverse effects of exposure to a hazardous chemical or improper storage or handling. There are 4 types of precautionary statements: prevention, to minimize exposure; response, to a related incident; storage, and disposal. Precautionary statements address work practices, engineering controls, and personal protective equipment needed to safely work with the chemical or product. And lastly, the name, address, and phone number of the chemical manufacturer, distributor, or importer will be present. The labels provide good basic information on hazard recognition and prevention. The respective safety data sheet, or SDS, provide additional and expanded information for the safe use of the chemical or product. Safety data sheets can be found either in a book at your location or on the WDPR safety module on the hub. Now, let's talk about the safety data sheets, or SDSs. In their new format, the SDSs have 16 sections. Section 1, Identification. This section includes what the product is, who manufactured it, how to contact them, and how to or not to use it. Section 2, Hazard Identification. This section identifies the hazards posed by the chemical along with the information that's required to be on the chemical's label, including the pictograms, signal word, hazard statements, and precautionary statements. Section 3. Composition information on ingredients. This section identifies the ingredients contained in the product which are known to be hazardous. Section 4. First aid measures. This section describes the initial care that should be given by untrained responders to an individual who has been exposed to the chemical, including first aid instructions by relevant routes of exposure and a description of the most important symptoms or effects. Section 5. Firefighting measures. This section provides recommendations for fighting a fire caused by the chemical, including suitable extinguishing equipment, provisions for unique circumstances, firefighter protective equipment, and other relevant information. Section 6. Accidental release measures. This section provides recommendations on the appropriate response to spills, leaks, or releases, including containment and cleanup practices to prevent or minimize exposure to people, properties, or the environment. Section 7. Handling and storage. This section provides guidance on the safe handling practices and conditions for safe storage of chemicals, including precautions for safe handling, minimizing the release of the chemical into the environment, and providing advice on general hygiene practices. Section 8. Exposure controls, personal protection. This section indicates the recognized exposure limits, engineering controls, work practices, and personal protective measures that can be used to minimize worker exposure. Section 9. Physical and chemical properties. This section describes the chemical's characteristics such as its normal appearance, odor, solubility, boiling, melting and freezing points, just to list a few. Section 10. Stability and reactivity. This section describes the reactivity hazards of the chemical and the chemical stability information and is broken into 3 parts: reactivity, chemical stability, and other. Section 11. Toxicological information. This section identifies toxicological and health effects information or indicates that such data are not available, including potential routes of exposure, known health effects and symptoms, the numerical measures of toxicity, and if the chemical has been identified to have any cancer-causing properties. Section 12. Provides ecological information. Section 13. Outlines disposal considerations. Section 14. Provides transport information. Section 15. Provides regulatory information. Section 16. Provides other information. Over the next few months, you may start to see these new labels and SDSs in your area. Please take the time to study the handouts you have been provided, and if you have any questions, please ask your leader. Thanks for watching.